Good afternoon. This is Professor Al-Deen. I am a worker for Muslim Network TV and the host of the Critical Talk program. I would just like to say, as Critical Talk moves around the world, I was thinking that one thing we haven't interrogated fully that in this post election cycle came to my mind, and that is our citizens from the South. For those of you who thought I meant Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana and Georgia, I didn't. I meant our citizens whose home is in Mexico, Argentina, Cuba, uh, Puerto Rico, all of these places that we think of when we think at all as perhaps Latinx, Latino workers, but we never think of them in the spaces from which they come to the United States and become citizens, contributing much to our notions of democracy and freedom, but also, in many guises, providing the stuff that keeps us alive, the food on our tables, uh, clean offices, but also they're in the political arena. And when they fight for all of us. So today I have with me two wonderful comrades in the struggle. One is Jorge Minuca, and I might have pronounced that wrong. I'm working on it. Mahuka,
Mújica.
Mojica.
There you
I'm
go.
working on my Spanish. It's
Thank
not in there, but I'm working. What can I say? Um, the Jorge is a journalist, and although he considers himself a Mexican immigrant living in the United States, I consider him a citizen of the highest order.
Thank you.
He's a journalist in Mexico and the United States. He's worked both at Univision and Telemundo Spanish language TV stations and the several printed media outlets. He's a member of the National Council of the National Writers Union. I have also with me today Professor Félix Masud-Piloto, who is an emeritus professor of history at DePaul University and an avid chronicler of the history between the U.S. and Cuba immigration and migration. And he keeps an eye out on what is happening in the Spanish speaking world, the Portuguese speaking world, and all of those other worlds. He's the author of With Open Arms and also the author of From Welcomed Exiles to Illegal Immigrants, Cuban Migration to the United States, 1959 to 1995. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I have, let me see, thought about a lot of different stuff. And I think the thing that stands out most to me is when when do you cease to be an immigrant and become a full-fledged citizen, most often because you were previously a recent, so to speak, immigrant who had to fight into this democracy and the work that both of you do keep democracy alive. That
I
was a
don't
lot.
I don't think you ever stop being an immigrant. I think you are. I mean, in my particular case, I keep tied to my country. Most of my family is in Mexico, and I keep dealing with social justice issues uh, in my own country because the Mexican community abroad is never been well defined by the Mexican government. We didn't have, for instance, the chance to vote from abroad. So we may become US citizens, but we are still Mexican citizens, and we want to vote and participate in our elections. This year, our remittances are going to be $40 billion we sent to Mexico. and that is sustaining the economy.
Billion, yeah.
$40 billion.
$40 billion this year alone. 40 billion. Without those $40 billion, Mexico would have crashed like in May or June of this year. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I am still a Mexican citizen, and I keep participating in Mexican politics and Mexican social issues.
Well, Felix, what's happened with Cuba? Do you all send $40 billion home?
No, we don't. But first, remember that we are less than 1/10 of the Mexican population, but we do spend 2 to 3 billion a year, which makes a difference in the Cuban depressed economy. And in fact, one of the last kick in the head that Trump uh, gave the Cuban government was to eliminate all
Yeah,
those remittances. He closed. There were several hundred Western Union offices in Cuba. They closed them all. That was
yeah,
last week, just because he lost the election. He wanted to do that. And
yeah,
but I think that with the question of citizenship, like Jorge, I always, although I've been living here more than 50 years, I still feel Cuban. I still feel at home when I go back to Cuba. So it's more a question, especially in my case, in the Cuban case, that when we left Cuba, it was determined to be forever. You gave up everything. You gave up citizenship, the whole thing. Later that changed. In the 1990s, we were able to not to apply for citizenship, but at least to have a Cuban passport that we could go back. And I started doing that in the 1990s. And we're in a very awkward situation where, yeah, we do contribute monetarily, and there are a lot of Cubans who would like to invest in Cuba if given the opportunity. And Cuba recognizes Cuba. For me to go to Cuba, as I do often, I have to use a Cuban passport, which I do have, but I'm not. But Cuba still doesn't recognize dual citizenship. I have to.
Oh, but they do of some peoples.
Yeah, but so there are a lot of things to be done here. But I think that the question with to your stuff feeling is more a question of identity. How do you identify yourself? I feel, it's not only in Cuba. I feel at home when I go to Puerto Rico, when I go to Mexico. I feel like, because we understand one another and we have the same issues, the same trouble. So it's a question of identity, which all of those things, many of those issues and problems that we have are not understood by our fellow U.S. citizens. They said, "Oh,
Well,
that's a."
that's because you don't tell us about that, you know. Uh, but let me, because both of you have brought up some things. Let's do some a vocabulary check. Um, Hispanic, Latin American, which excludes South America, I think, but I'm not sure. Latinx. Give me, do I just identify people as Mexican or Cuban or Argentinian? Or do I use one of these drop bucket terms?
go ahead.
We get that all the time. I identify myself as Cuban, although an American citizen more. I've been an American citizen longer than I've been a Cuban citizen, but I still, the question of identity, I call myself Cuban. I don't get offended if you call me Latino or if you call me Hispanic or none of that, because we're all of that. And it's just the thing is that the term has been very loaded politically here in the United States. Before it was Hispanic, and Hispanic is very sort of it's not as inclusive as Latin America, which includes all of the Americas, including the non-Spanish speaking Latin Americans, which are many, including in Brazil, which is more than 50% of the population of the region. So it's just a matter of a preference. I don't get insulted if you call me Latinx, or that's fine. I'm part of it,
But those terms have historical markers.
yes, they have.
They do, but if this election proves something, is that Latinos as a bloc don't exist.
Right.
We have 50% of Cubans in Florida voting for Donald Trump, and we have 80% of Mexicans in Wisconsin voting for Biden. That's a big, huge difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, just as Felix is saying, you may call us anything you want to call us. We keep calling ourselves Mexicans, Salvadorans, Hondurans, etc., etc., etc. It's a matter of the culture of the United States to put us in a block to try to deal with us.
Right.
Right.
But we're not that.
It's
We
the other.
being, 23 different nationalities and 23 different cultures. Definitely, it's so ridiculous. The 1910 census registered how many Mexicans were born in the United States, which is ridiculous because if you were born in the United States, you were not Mexican,
Right.
a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
We keep fighting against the concept of America as the United States.
Right.
I'm sorry, America is a continent.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a country that is called the United States of America. But I am an American from birth in Mexico because I was born in the American continent. And as a matter of fact, a United States citizen because the legal name of my country is the Mexican United States.
That's right.
So I am an American citizen, a U.S. citizen since I was born in Mexico City.
Yeah, but we miss out on learning about South America. For example, when we don't call you by as a person coming from El Salvador or Chile or this and that, we miss all of that cultural richness. It was like when I read this book. I think her name is Gabriela Marquez.
Yes,
Yeah,
On did she write about Pinochet?
No, that's Isabel Allende who writes about it.
Okay, well, what can I say? I'm still dumb. One was writing on Pinochet, and I was pacing the floor. And I'm saying, how did I miss this? Then I pick up another book. There's a woman that wrote a beautiful text, that might have been Gabrielle, about the ghosts. I'm reading all of this stuff that I've been honored to read. But I'm saying, well, when you put the bucket term there, I don't realize what has happened to people, what the ebb and flow of the politics are, and then I jump up and we have U.S. policy for Latin America. And I'm saying, well, what does that mean? What is the U.S. policy? Besides trying to get free labor, what is the U.S. policy?
And land.
Cheap labor. It's amazing how the concept of labor acquires different meanings in the United States and in Mexico. Mexico celebrated for many years the twin plants program, the maquila, as we call it. And Mexico celebrated because it's foreign investment, dollars coming to us.
Yeah.
When you analyze it a little bit deeper, you realize that the U.S. companies are paying 1/6 of the minimum wages in the U.S. That's what they are paying Mexican workers. And yet they keep selling their products at the same price they were selling them before when they were producing them here. So this maquila thing only means impoverishment for our countries. This dollar investment, foreign investment, doesn't mean riches for Mexico because all the wealth keeps coming back to the United States.
Right.
That wealth that is created comes back here. And so you enjoy a higher standard of living thanks to the overexploitation of our workers in our countries. And you enjoy that level. And that's fine. You don't have to question how it came to be.
So, Felix, what do you think with Biden? Do you think there's going to be a change?
Changing what in Latin American policy towards?
I don't know. Am I talking about all of South America? See, you're messing with me and my limited vocabulary.
Well, let's get this straight. The fact that Biden won is already quite an advancement. We had to get rid of Trump. Trump has been a total disaster. I mean, he has taken all the stereotypes, all the abusive policies to an extreme, without any kind of, without even thinking about these things. Biden is a different story. And of course, I don't expect a revolutionary change. I don't expect earth-shattering things, but it definitely is going to change in how does the United States relate to Latin America? We have in the 23 countries, we have tremendous amounts of problems, especially political problems. You take things like Peru has had 3 presidents in 1 week. That's it. In Guatemala,
but at least they didn't have the Chavez, who's dead, getting dug up to mess with Trump's election.
Right. I know.
Right.
It's a while because that's the only demon besides Fidel Castro that the U.S. electorate knows.
They might dig him up next.
And Chavez, and after that, everybody's an angel. But and look at Guatemala, the same thing. Guatemala just a few days ago, this weekend, burned the Congress and forced the president and the whole cabinet to resign because they had signed a new budget that cut health, which in the middle of the pandemic, called education, and any kinds of investigations on human rights. So the people went out to the streets and they burned the damn Congress, and they still out in the streets. So you got all those things that the United States is going to have to deal with. And let's not forget that the United States, as an empire that it has been in Latin America, is responsible for many of this crazy stuff. We are responsible, of course, for a lot of it, and it is our people that are doing these things, and we got to deal with that. But the fact is that for more than 200 years, the United States has been supporting and actually encouraging these dictatorships or whatever, depending on what they need, what kind of interest they have, whether it's cheap labor, where it's land in the case of the war with Mexico in the 19th century. So you got all of this crazy stuff. Now, having said that, I do expect improvements, obviously, and already the election of Joe Biden is already a major improvement. So we'll see how it unfolds. We got complicated things. In the case of Cuba, they just named a Cuban American to head the Homeland Security that is in charge of immigration now. I didn't know of him before until he came into the public light. But from what I hear, well, he was born in Cuba in 1959, but he was raised and spent his life in California, which is great. So he's got a very different vision of immigration and everything else. And I also find out that he was instrumental in the 2014 Obama administration initiative towards Cuba, and that is huge. I'm sure he's going to be put through the rails in Miami when they start finding out.
Well, we're going to have to take a quick break, and when we come back, Jorge, if you would speak to Andres Lopez Obrador.
Yes.
Mexico's leftist president. I don't know what that means, but we will talk about this dude when we come back. This is Professor Al-Deen with Critical Talk, which is a production of Muslim Network TV. We will be right back.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS.
Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No me! No justice! No me!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned has brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
This is Professor Al-Deen with Muslim Network TV on Critical Talk with Jorge Mújica. And Felix Masud-Piloto. My Spanish is getting better. I want you to know I have free Spanish lessons, and next year I'll be able to, just whip it out. I want to go back to Andres Obrador. Now, how do you get to be left supporting Trump?
I think that's a misconception. I follow to what Felix was saying. Trump blackmailed many countries and many governments, and that's exactly what he did with Mexico. Mexico is highly dependent on the United States. The United States is the number one economic economic partner of the United States. If the United States sneezes, Mexico gets the flu, and in that way, Donald Trump imposed some regulations on Mexico. Donald Trump threatened to close the border, completely close it, because he wanted Mexico to become a safe third country, as he called it. So people asking and requesting asylum, instead of being in the United States waiting for their process, had to wait in Mexico. Mexico didn't admit it, but Trump did it anyway. The United States is sending back anyone who applies legally at an international port. And what is Mexico going to do? To leave people in the international breach? That's impossible. So Mexico has to admit him back. It's not willingly. It was blackmailed by the United States. So I think the Biden administration is going to have to restart from zero. How to establish a decent diplomatic relationship with Mexico instead of a blackmail relationship. That's what I think. In my opinion, that's what happened.
Yeah. Phil, you got a comment?
No. That's I agree with Jorge that Mexico had really no alternative, and even someone on the left, like López Obrador had to say, okay, that's fine with us, but most Mexicans know that's not fine with him or with them. So we'll see. I guess that I'm sure that he also welcomes the fact that there's a new president now and someone who has a working brain and is not such an opportunist. That's what Trump has done. Trump has no ideological investment in any of his in any of his countries. He went immediately, became very good friends of Bolsonaro in Brazil, because Bolsonaro is just like him and wants to be like him. So that's what he looks for. He's just looking at what's in it for him, for Donald Trump, not the rest of the country. He doesn't give a damn, like putting people on third, where the hell have you heard of people going to a third country to get asylum? That's
exactly. Exactly. Well, American citizens of all stripes saw, and I'm sure it was making the hearts bleed of those who were from some of those South American countries, the treks of folk fleeing all kinds of violence and corruption and wanton murders. It reminded me of reading, I think it was Venezuela, where the grandmothers had to get out and find out where their grandchildren were, because they had been, by the government, placed in these homes. But what are I'm confused. You all got to help me out here. I know that we had some kind of trade deal that was supposed to be, it was touted as, good for America. But it kicked the behinds of the people in our South, okay? And forgive me that I don't know my history or political science well enough to name it, but I know it happened. And I know that governments, people in government, benefited by those trade agreements, while the majority of the people in those countries suffered at poverty levels. We can imagine, perhaps, if we stretch it, but we can't imagine that level of poverty. And then you got gangs, and what we see on TV, or we don't have, for us to walk to the store is an ordeal. Not 1,700 miles. You know, and I was thinking of the Motorcycle Diaries. They had a motorcycle. They weren't walking from Argentina up to Cuba. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Then we put them in cages. They're still in the damn cages.
Mm-hmm.
What we gonna do? My heart is breaking. My heart is breaking for two reasons. One, why aren't those kids, some of those kids living in my house? Why aren't some of those kids living in homes of people I know that have kids, don't have kids, or whatever? Why aren't we going to get those? I mean, I'm old and I probably can't stand kids, but I'd take a kid in rather than see him in a cage. What we gonna do?
Yeah, that's the zero tolerance policy. You know, it's a creation of Stephen Miller, advisor to President Trump, which is absolutely anti-immigrant, is racist in nature. But it's not only the policy abroad. I mean, obviously, the image of a kid in a cage is, publicized and it becomes famous. But it's all policies against immigrants. Let me tell you very briefly. Last year, 2019, the Social Security Administration within the United States issued 900,000 no-match letters. Those are letters the Social Security Administration sends to companies saying, hey, the Social Security number, date of birth, and name of this particular worker doesn't have a coincidence with our database. Basically meaning you are hiring undocumented workers. Yeah. And out of those 900,000 letters, over 500,000 Latino workers, essential workers, lost their jobs. You know, so that's not publicized in the media.
Right.
It doesn't reach that level. It's not a kid in a cage. Yeah, but it's 500,000 people losing their jobs, 10 years, 20 years working, producing for this economy, and all of a sudden getting tossed, out of here because your name and your Social Security number does not coincide. You have been paying taxes for 20 years in that company, but all of a sudden you're out. So it was an anti-immigrant policy in all possible levels within and outside the United States.
Well, Felix had at one point told me that this U.S.-Cuba relationship was like a darn roller coaster. Oh, come. We're going to do this for you. Oh, go. We're not going to do this for you anymore. And if you go, we're going to, try to bomb you with Kennedy, to make sure you don't come back. And then, it's come. And then we're going to rescue you, kind of. What does that mean?
In that case, like Jorge was talking about how the United States wants to use the cheap labor.
Yeah.
Well, in the case of Cuba, which you're mentioning, the Bay of Pigs invasion, it was that the policy of the United States at the time was, let's bring all the Cubans here as much as we can so we can use them as the military force to invade Cuba, which they did in 1961, and it was a disaster. But this is, they didn't have any kind of policy in place. They kept, all you had to do was get from the 90 miles between Cuba and the United States, get here, and you say that you're fleeing communism. It doesn't matter. And they would accept you. And that's still to this day, it's incredible because that's the United States is following its own interest.
And it's got consequences for Mexico, Professor, if you allow me 30 seconds.
Sure.
The dry feed policy meant any Cuban trying to come to the United States by sea could be intercepted and automatically returned to Cuba. But if you landed in any place in the United States, if you put a feed in U.S. soil, then you were immediately admitted as an asylum petitioner. So that changed the trend. Instead of traveling by sea to the United States, to Florida, Cubans went to Cancun and then crossed Mexico, and then they simply stepped into the United States. And in many cases, they were rejected. And so now Mexico has a growing Cuban community. You know, when Barack Obama decided to get rid of that law, Cubans were rejected. So the Cuban community is growing in Mexico as a sub-product of U.S. policy.
Get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but that's true. And we can talk about the fact that some of those folks left. Cubans would probably they wanted to get out of Cuba one way or another. They went, for example, to Ecuador that didn't have any requirement to get in, and from there they somehow went. They went through six countries before they finally made it to the Mexican border in the ocean,
Yeah.
which is
5,000 miles
yeah.
instead of 90 miles.
Yeah, yeah.
My goodness, I'm enjoying this education, but I need parts 1, 5, and 6 because it's a lot of stuff that we hear bits and pieces of. It makes no sense, so you can ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't understand it, you ignore it. Yeah.
I taught immigration history for 30 years. And when I explained the Cuban situation and so on, the students look at me and said, "Don't feel bad. You didn't understand it, right?" Well, because it doesn't make any sense. They thought that they were not getting it. They said, "No, you don't get it because it doesn't make sense."
Yeah, it's not your fault.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring Puerto Rico into our conversation, but I want to get to this DACA.
Mhm.
The Dreamers. The Dreamers are fully grown now, right? Most of them. And so, why are they still an issue?
Trump made it an issue.
Yeah. But most visibility, you have to remember that DACA wasn't a concession. DACA was won because the students, the Dreamers, occupied the offices of politicians in both parties. They took over Luis Gutierrez's office.
Yeah.
They occupied Luis Gutierrez's office, who was supposed to be the leader of immigration reform and the immigration movement. They occupied his offices, and forced Barack Obama to issue DACA. And they gained incredible visibility. Their videos, the government was aware of what they were doing. There's an incredibly funny video where some undocumented students, undocumented Dreamers, go down to the border and present themselves to the Border Patrol and saying, I'm looking for this or that. I'm an undocumented immigrant in the United States. And the Border Patrol tells them, I'm not falling for that. We know who you are, and we will not arrest you, and we will not put you into deportation proceedings because we know what you're doing. You're setting a trap for immigration, and we won't fall for it. So that incredible visibility forced Barack Obama to create DACA. And that visibility still exists. That's why still is an issue. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. Donald Trump lost. I don't know in how many lower courts and finally in the Supreme Court, but he took revenge because the Supreme Court basically said the program should continue as it was created. And instead of reopening the chances to apply for DACA, what Donald Trump did was to reduce the term from 2 years to 1. So you have to reapply each year, and it takes between 6 and 8 months to get your reapplication approved. So the DACAs are now in a constant roller coaster again. They have to reapply every 4 months. Yeah.
You're grown with children.
And professionals and taxpayers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Health professionals, essential workers. And the same thing with the TPS, the protected temporary status for Salvadorans, Hondurans, Nicaraguans. It's exactly the same thing. 300,000 people were told they had to leave the country in 2021. Supreme Court decided finally on that. And it so happens that 80% of them work either in agriculture or in the health professions. So are we trying to get rid of 200,000 health professionals and agricultural workers in the middle of a pandemic? Are you kidding me? But that's Donald Trump's policy. Yeah.
This is Professor Amin Al-Deen. This is Muslim Network TV, and I am on Critical Talk with our citizens from the South speaking, Jorge Mújica and Félix Masud-Piloto. We'll be right back.
Assalamu alaikum!
I love Adam's World because it makes me learn in a fun way. That Adam has a green face and orange hair. I like this song. I like how Adam sings. I like Adam's World because it makes me happy. What? No. 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 And here's Adam and here's Anissa. Adam is and his sister. Adam is a boy and he is very smart.
Download the new Adam's World app at adamsworldapp.com and let's help tomorrow's Muslims today.
This is Professor Amin Al-Deen with Muslim Network TV on Critical Talk with our citizens from the South, Jorge Mújica and Félix Masud-Piloto. And let me ask Felix. Many of our viewers did not understand the stuff coming out. You know, Trump's position against Cuba was interesting, especially since you knuckleheads in large numbers voted for him. Talk to me.
Well, one of the things is, well, there's Cubans are in Miami, you know, the epicenter of the Cuban exile in the United States, the biggest communities. They have always voted Republican, which is crazy because the most active anti-Cuban presidents have been Democrats. John F. Kennedy, who invaded the country, who continued a great policy of terror against Cuba, and then you have Bill Clinton, which came up with all this the Helms-Burton Act and the most.
No. Explain.
Okay, so that's the thing. But in addition to that, now what to explain Trump was almost a natural that he's a Republican, he's got to be good, and then Trump kept lying about everything, including a massive radio and campaign on TV and the whole thing on how Biden was going to bring communism to the United States. He was going to do all these crazy things. He was going to eliminate health care, the whole thing. He's going to send children to Russia. It was awful. It was so despicable. But with that, he made great gains. And to this day, they're still out there saying Trump, regardless of what the results are. So that's the the thing.
Because this was in Spanish.
Yeah.
All the rest of us, my Spanish is not that good yet, and it's you guys' fault. We missed it.
Yeah, but the Miami voters, they get it. They all got it.
And it backfired in many other places, like Wisconsin. The result still surprised me. 80% of Mexicans in Wisconsin voting for Biden. Because for us, socialism or communism is not a threat. We just elected 2 years ago a leftist candidate as president of Mexico. During the primaries, Bernie Sanders really made inroads in the Latino community. I live in a district that Sanders took by 80% of the vote. So socialism is not bad for Mexicans. It may be bad for Cubans in Florida, but it's not bad for Mexicans in Wisconsin.
But the United States form of democracy is social democracy. We have more entitlements than the moon got specks. It's an entitlement. Those are socialist policies. They're not capitalist democratic policies. So how did all of a sudden does socialism become a bad thing?
Yeah, but of course, it's a false argument that they use. It's credible. Just like Trump is now, Giuliani is blaming the election results on Hugo Chavez's intervention with the machine. Hugo Chavez been there for 7 years, and of course he had no way of doing that. Nor was he interested in getting Joe Biden elected, even if he were alive. But but look at the to explain how the Cubans voted. Hillary Clinton in 2016 won Miami-Dade County, and Barack Obama won it too. But that all goes depending on the politics at the time. In the case of Trump, that very ugly but effective propaganda campaign worked for him. And if you go back even before, when Bill Clinton, for example, in 1992, when he first ran, he was behind in the polls and he was a liberal. This guy was going to be the communist and all that stuff. And he was behind in the polls against George H.W. Bush. And he went to Miami, had a huge fundraiser with the right wingers, and he said that he was going to really put the hammer on Fidel Castro and so on. And that's how he turned the vote. So, they always played that issue. And that, incredibly enough, it works. When it works, this happens in other places. Dominican Republic, you have the race issue. Dominican Republic, if you want to get someone elected, just make them anti-Haitian because they're more anti-Black than the Dominicans. So, that is just the way they use it, manipulate it.
Well, I think we need to learn. Now we have the nomination of a Cuban American, Alejandro Mayorkas, to head the Department of Homeland Security. Is that a good thing?
Well, I think I said earlier that it could be, but you never know. You never know what's behind the thing. But so far, what I know of him, the little that I know from public, is that he's okay. That he was very, very good. He's very respectful of immigrant rights and so on. But let's not forget that President Obama, for whom I voted and love and so on, he deported more than 2 million, mostly Mexicans and Central Americans. So you never know how the things are going to unfold. It's much better to have someone there that seems to be decent and have a grip on what's going on, than to have an insane and cruel guy like Steve Miller blowing in Trump's ears. So hopefully it'll be improvement. We'll see.
Yeah, I think Mallorca is going to do exactly that. Follow the flow, follow the instructions. He's credited with creating DACA, but I think that credit is most to the legal frame of DACA, not because he really wanted to benefit an X amount of people. It's because he was instructed to structure the DACA from the legal point of view. He's a good attorney. And so if he's ordered to come up with legal structures for legalization for immigrants, for essential workers, something like that, he will do it. Yeah. If he's instructed the other way around, he would do the other way around thing.
So he's not actually perhaps the best nominee.
I don't think Biden has had the best nominees for anything so far. We're still waiting for the results of Georgia, January 5th, 2021, to see what's going to happen in the Senate. I would go for Bernie Sanders for Secretary of Labor. I don't think he's going to get it.
I'm surprised that he didn't reach back for some of those presidential candidates for their skills. I'm really concerned about that. But let me ask you not quite last, what about this wall? What about those Americans on the other side of the wall who are claiming, there is so much murder mayhem in the white and Black communities down there. How are you going to talk about the folk who are brown?
Yeah, but I think that the whole issue with the wall speaks to what's happening. The kind of a situation Biden has in his hands You had Donald Trump for 4 years, or even before that, just bad mouthing and saying horrible things about immigrants and trying to do crazy things like building that wall, which is absolutely insane. But that wall has become a symbol of Trump, not only of Trump, but Trumpism, the people who follow him. And now he's going to have to make a decision. See, that wall can go to hell. Should it go down? And let's have a reasonable, rational, and fair immigration system where people can come and apply for an entry, for even if a work permit, whatever it is, that they can do that instead of coming into that being blocked by that ugly wall that Trump kept calling the beautiful wall. I think it should be blown up. Is what it should be done with it.
A couple more hurricanes and it will be gone.
Right. Well, that happened. Part of it fell off with it. So very strong wind.
Real. I mean, the real problem is not immigrants. The real problem is not immigration. The real problem is that the United States doesn't have a system to allow workers to come to work in the United States. That's basically it. You know, the U.S. economy needs, or needed before COVID, but needs international workers, and that's what immigrants are. But it doesn't have a system to give working visas to those international workers. You know, the whole system is based on family relationships, you know, family relatives. That's it. You are the brother, the daughter, the sister, the husband, the wife of someone who's already in the United States, then you get a visa. But if you are a willing worker that washes dishes, there's no visa for you. Although you are needed, you know, the whole hospitality industry depends on these international workers, but there are no visas for them. So the problem is right there. You know, the creation of a system that gives 500,000, 1 million working visas each year. Problem solved.
Let me ask, this is my last question this time, because I will have you back. If you were asked to come up with a fair immigration policy for everyone, a codicil, so to speak, that would just have a domino effect and clear up stuff in a minute for each of you, a minute and a half. I mean, I know that's asking a lot. What would it say? Think about
what I just said, you know, working visas for people who are needed by the economy in the United States, and that's not open borders, communism, socialism at all. And the other side, instead of exploiting and over-exploiting our countries, collaborate with them. You know, when the European Union was created, the richest countries put billions of dollars into the poorest countries to develop their economy. So made it mandatory that if you are investing in Mexico, you have to keep your wealth, you know, your proceedings of that investment in Mexico. Don't bring it back to the U.S. and buy a yacht to put it in Lake Michigan. You know, keep it there and keep reinvesting there. So make the Mexican economy grow. That's basically it.
Yeah, you know, the bottom line is that no immigrant wants to leave their country. They want to live in their country, but they have to live. They have a family to support. They have to survive. So if they can make a living in their country, a decent living, they can, and that can only be done through investment, attracting, and that's, you know, and that of course is so connected. You go back to Lopez Obrador accepting this thing because he has to. Because what's the alternative? No one likes to leave, but there's no alternative, and they do so. And if the United States were to have a fair immigration system where you can apply to come in and work, where you can apply for citizenship, you can do all the things that real merit. You know, everybody talks about merit, but they don't use that. They simply politicize it. And who has merit? Those people who we favor because of the politics in their country. Who doesn't? Those are we oppose. So it's all if there's a fair system, it will be much easier for everyone and fair.
This is Professor Al-Deen with Muslim Network TV and Critical Talk, and I have had the honor and 2 kinds of history lessons from Jorge Mújica and Félix Masud-Piloto, and I will have these guys back because there's too much we don't know. And I am determined to become an educated person. Thank both of you. Please stay around.
Thank you. Hey, go ahead.
It's been an honor for us. Thank you.